I became a U.S. citizen in 2016 specifically to vote for your best friend Hillary Clinton.
We love her, don't we?
Yeah, right.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
I did throw up when he said it. But
Yeah, well, hey, I'm here for pure transparency and authenticity, whatever the words are. So that was my reasoning, right? And not a fan. My biggest fear was Trump was going to lead us to nuclear war. And what I saw in 4 years was quite the opposite happened. There were no wars. He buddied the wrong people according to the mainstream media. But in retrospect, I look at that from a strategic perspective and I think, is that a bad thing necessarily? That, the old adage of keep your enemies close, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And what was the result of that? Sure, maybe people preyed on his ego and were trying to nice to get the best of him. But ultimately what that led to was, we had safety. And I think as a voter, if you're not prioritizing national security and avoiding nuclear war, all the other stuff seems silly in comparison. What are your taxes? All this other mumbo jumbo side topics. If we have nuclear war, none of it matters.
less people died with Trump. Negotiating with Kim Jong-un or Russia or whatever, we had less death. There was a buildup and a fear of war with Russia and Ukraine under Obama. Trump gets in and everything starts settling down. Trump crushes ISIS. Trump loses to Biden. And we instantly get war, escalation, confidence crisis.
Yep.
And foreign policy is like one of my principal issues. And that's why certainly I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Trump or the people around him are perfect in any way, but certainly better than what we're going to get from Kamala Harris, Joe Biden.
Well, I think it's not really controversial to say that a large reason or a large portion of the reason why countries were so aggressive during the Biden administration is because of incompetence.
Yeah.
Like nobody felt like Biden was capable of actually following through on any threats. I mean, how many times did he say to Iran, don't, and that, as if that's some kind of deterrent? Well, clearly it wasn't. You know, whereas with Donald Trump, people are like, well, maybe he's crazy enough to do something.
Yeah, I think the perception of strength is often, even just as important as actual strength, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like you said, Trump says there'll be, the world's never seen before. He uses a lot of hyperbole. He says a lot of things. We're going to invade. We're going to take Greenland. We're going to take he says all these things. And to some degree, I think when you're dealing with these other dictators or world leaders, he seems to have he's like the dictator whisperer, if you will. He speaks the language. They get him, right? You have to be a little bit crazy to understand some of these people. And it appears as though through his tenure, he kept the bad actors at bay. And then when he was out of office, it appeared as though they saw that as an opportunity. So had Kamala won, my concern from those leaders would be well, why would they stop now?
Yeah. People in the West, in the U.S., Canada, and a lot of parts of Western Europe, they really do believe that the rest of the world is like the West. And I strongly disagree. The rest of the world doesn't respond to niceties and politeness and things like that. They think that it's a sign of weakness. And I think that's undeniable. And there's a lot more of the rest of the world than there is of the United States, Canada, and Western Europe.
Strength is one word for how they perceived Trump, but maybe mad, crazy might be another word.
More
Fine
accurate.
with me,
right? Because Trump, and I'm not saying this to disparage Trump. These are Trump's words that Putin and Xi feared he might actually nuke their capitals. Maybe only 5%, Trump said, but it was enough, so they back off. Hopefully we get this kind of Trump is a madman deterrence and war abates. I'm hearing that there's a ceasefire agreement looming with Israel and Hamas. That would be very good. We'll see. I'm largely interested in the next few days of how we're going to see him deal with immigration and the economy.
The deal on hand right now, though, is one they've had for a while now. It's the exact same deal that they had at the beginning when the Biden administration and everyone said, don't do it. I'm at least on the show, I was watching Breaking Points. What's going to happen, the new deal, it was exactly what it was a couple months ago, a year ago, when Biden did not want to do anything. So it takes Trump to come in the office for him to say, Netanyahu. Yeah.
Well,
the deal.
That was a really great press conference where Trump said all the gates of hell will be unleashed unless the hostages are released. And I hope that they look at the TV and they say, oh, crap.
Yeah, well, I think, I would look at it sort of a different way. I don't think that Trump was specifically playing hardball with Netanyahu. it was more a case of he's saying, we're going to support you fully to end this war now.
Yeah.
Like he's,
Right.
because I think there was a little bit of trepidation, with under the Biden administration, there were several, measures that they were trying to put on Netanyahu saying, don't go to Rafah, don't do this, don't do this. And, Trump, clearly of the two sides was far more, pro-Israel side in this war. So he's going to, make sure that whatever they need, they're going to get.
But we don't know if they're giving him the West Bank, if they're going to let the settlers move in. We don't know the details of the actual, what Trump is going to give them. We don't know yet.
We'll see. I'm curious though. You mentioned in 2016 you wanted to vote for Hillary.
Yes.
What was the moment for you where you were like, I can't vote for these people?
Okay, so the thing with Hillary was, and like her or not, I think she was the most knowledgeable person ever, like the most quote unquote prepared for understanding what goes on there, right? She's lived her whole life in that, in that avenue. For me, I think there was just in the last year or two, if you will, my values haven't changed really at the core, like a classic liberal. But I feel like both sides went sort of farther away from the middle. So the question in this election is like, who's closer to the middle? And I think generally who's closer to the middle, wins. And Trump's coalition that he put together with Elon Musk and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, and Trump himself, they're all Democrats. They're all traditional. Like RFK said, I would have run as a Democrat. Tulsi ran as a Democrat. They kicked them out. They threw them to the, there was sort of this elitist attitude. And there is, I find because, I'm in touch with both sides, obviously in the world that I live in. And I find there's a much more elitist attitude with those in the extreme progressive left that if you don't agree with them 100%, you are the enemy, And I don't find that, or I haven't found that with those I disagree with on the other side as much.
Yeah. And you're not deep entrenched in politics, I imagine.
I relatively so, you could say. I consider myself politically homeless at this point.
But are you someone who watches political podcasts every day, and that's
I'm pretty in tune with what's going on.
Have you always been like that?
Involved? I would say for the last I would say for the last.
I don't know how you get to Hillary Clinton if that's the case. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, I like Bill, right? And I thought I like Bill Clinton, and at the time, there a lot of the issues that are have been raised since 2016 didn't exist back then, right? There was we weren't really talking about DEI programs. There wasn't the idea that internet in 2016 was talking about DEI programs.
Oh yeah.
I guess I didn't see it. Maybe because I was on Twitter, which was was in my bubble, which that didn't see those types of things.
And I don't mean this just disrespectfully, but maybe there's an age gap. I'm 38, so people in my age cohort were very heavily into video games, which we saw the beginning of this whole culture war with Gamergate. There was this big upswing at the end of the 2000s for all of these diversity terms. LexisNexis data shows that every news outlet just saw a massive spike in racism, white privilege, all of these things. And so the core issues for people my age at the time, they didn't care about Barack Obama, drone bombs, or anything like that. They were talking about why in a video game about World War I, the main character was a purple-haired woman with a missing hand. What's going on in our world? And so when Donald Trump comes in and starts speaking crass and crude, I was in Janesville, Wisconsin, and I talked to a couple of young guys who were like 22, and I said, "What's your key issue?" And they said, "Political correctness. We're freaked out by what the Democrats have been doing, and Trump kind of just says it like it is."
Yeah, no, there's no question. I think you bring up a really good point there, and for me, just sort of being introduced to quote unquote woke ideology, right? And the first experience I had with it, I was on ESPN, myself and Phil Hellmuth. We were doing the break desk, and I was just talking about a play, and I said, "Well, it's not like this guy sucks," right? The next day, I didn't think I said anything wrong. The next day, the execs at ESPN said, "Sorry, you can't use the term sucks." And I'm like, wait a minute. I said he doesn't suck, right? I guess the connotation is somehow that's homophobic in some way.
No way.
I mean, because,
is that what sucks
No, I get
means?
it. Yeah.
Well, that's where it comes from. The
Really?
real
I didn't
sucks
even
is
know
like
that.
when it's like, oh, he sucks something. Okay. So the next day I go in and there was a woman on set or whatever, and I was tired, whatever. So I just said something like, "Oh, you know what? We got a long day. I just got to man up." And I was told that was insensitive and I was using gendered language and I didn't understand what she meant. Like I just said, "Man, I got to man up."
Yeah,
Because I'm,
Sure.
And she felt that was gendered. So that was my first sort of introduction into it. And then I sort of saw that sort of avenue towards all these little microaggressions and really creating the divide, making it to the point where you walk around on eggshells with everything that you say, you might say the wrong thing. And no tolerance at all. Like I asked this woman, I said, "Listen, the guy who's 75 years old, he lives in Texas, he says to the waitresses, 'Hey, honey, can I get some more of that?' are you going to call him a sexist? You know, all these types of things.
Yes, they will.
And she's like, she
And
said
they'll
yes.
film
And
it
I was
and put it
like,
on the internet.
well, don't you think it's worthwhile to explain to him? He's like, I don't want to do the teaching. He has to do the work on his own. I was like, that there's like, you know, you're making somebody evil for doing something that he's been doing 70 years of his life with no ill intent. And I think that's where they really missed the boat. What is his intention when he says, hey, honey, can you bring me another coffee? Was there anything demeaning about what he said? Maybe you could argue that it's the language we shouldn't use. I'm all for it. Let's talk about it, right? Let's have the conversation.
Have you ever told that ESPN story before? Is that like,
Yeah.
wow, I did not know that. First of all, I didn't even know that's the origin of the word sucks.
Yes, I didn't know that either until I was married for the first time. And
I mean, on The Simpsons, there's that famous joke where Bart says, I didn't think it was possible, but this both blows and sucks at the same time.
yeah, right.
And
right.
as a kid, I didn't. No, I just thought that blows.
I looked, but they
you
were
know,
like skull. It was almost like this weird face they made to me too. I was like I really was like I thought I did a good job on the break desk. I was proud of it, you know. And I was like, why not? I said he doesn't suck.
So wait, like you're commenting on a poker game?
Yeah. So what you know is the World Series of Poker final table.
Holy crap.
And then you know while they're on break, we go and discuss the plays and stuff. So I was talking about a play, and he said it's not like he sucks. And I thought, okay, maybe they don't want me to say that the players suck. You don't want to demean them. That's fine. But I said he doesn't suck, and they said no, you just can't use the term suck. Yeah. And I just didn't understand why.
What year was it?
I think it was 2017, 18. I think it was
Wow.
it was before the peak, but for me, it was the early onset of sort of this ideology that, you know, I was always sort of anti-political correctness my whole life because I think it's silly.
Yeah.
I grew up in a multicultural world where we all made fun of each other. We told jokes about each other. You're not allowed to do today. Like if Phil Ivey, who's a friend of mine, and I are on a golf course, you know, and you heard the conversation, we'd both be canceled.
Oh, dude, I
Right?
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I grew up much the same way with a bunch of my friends of all different racial backgrounds. And one of our friends referred to each and every one of us by our racial slur. And we all thought it was funny. Nobody was mad. Nobody was offended. Nobody was insulted. We were
was a bonding almost.
We were trying to be like George Carlin. We looked up to these liberal guys.
Yeah, we always found humor to be a way that we bond, you know, and it became such a faux pas. Like, you know, you think of Don Rickles' era, which maybe was a little extreme, you know, with the stereotypes, if you will. But, you know, I've always felt like when we celebrate our difference and we laugh about them, we actually grow closer.
Yeah.
Then this idea, and this is where the DEI programs and this training and these trainings, which have proven to actually increase racist ideas. Right? When you constantly talk about this stuff and you introduce it to children who used to play with their friends who were black, brown, and whatever, and they're just their friends. But now, no, that's not just your friend. That's your black friend.
Yeah.
And that's different, right? So when you introduce that, you create these divides that didn't necessarily need to exist in the first place.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.